So let's dissect the face. Most of the time we're making eye contact, but typically in most conversations when we're not making eye contact, we're looking at the person's face. So I keep these in order of priority as much as I can. On the previous slide, the top two were the top priority. Lip compression and object insertion are the two top things that I would take away from this if you only took two, but these are all important. Lip compression is one of those things where the attribution error doesn't really apply. Lip compression means withheld opinions. Withheld opinions. Let's say you're in a sales meeting or a sales call, and the moment that you start talking about payment terms, the person acts like they're agreeing, they're nodding their head, but the moment that you start talking about it, their lips squeeze together. And they go, yeah, and you see the lips squeeze in. Or you ask one of your friends, how do you like your new job? And they go, oh, it's great. And you see the lips squeeze together. Withheld opinions. Very important to note, if you see it, you need to identify what the cause is. What caused the lip compression? And next, we have object insertion. Object insertion is when anything goes into the mouth. A tip of a pencil eraser, a pen, a woman puts her hair into her mouth, a finger, or even the lips. Someone pulls a lip into their mouth. This is another big deal. In sales, influence, psychology, interrogation, the practice of law, medicine, doesn't matter. If you're a doctor and trying to diagnose a patient, it's all the same. Object insertion means a need for reassurance. Just about every damn time you'll ever see it. A need for reassurance. So I'm in the middle of a conversation with a customer or a client of mine or a patient, and I start talking about some factor of the medical procedure or some part of the sales process, the buying process, and I see object insertion, I know immediately I have work to do on the spot now. I see object insertion, I need to provide that reassurance on the spot. And it's not like I'm going to call the behavior out. I'm just going to act like it's part of my normal conversation. I might say, you know, a lot of people are worried about this initially. I know I was when I first did whatever. But, and then we kind of diffuse the objection without ever asking them if they have one. We're obviously, hopefully none of you call people out on these behaviors. It's creepy to begin with. But second, we don't want people knowing that we're sitting there reading them. It changes their behavior and they become more self-managing. For instance, people always ask me, do you turn it on or do you turn it off? Are you reading people all the time? And of course, to make them comfortable in conversations so they act like humans and I act like a human, I say, oh, no, that's something I've got to get into that mode, which is not the whole truth. So let's talk about genuine versus false facial expressions. What we talked about the first session was that our normal emotions, our genetic memories of nonverbal behavior come from the animal brain. The animal brain is right in here. This part of the brain is where all of our nonverbal behaviors come from. That's why they're so freaking reliable, because they're coming from a part that we can't even talk to because it doesn't speak English. False facial expressions are social in nature, and the social parts, the fake facial expressions, come from this outside brain, the neocortex, the human part of us. And this part of the brain, the outer part, has been maybe rehearsing how to make fake facial expressions for a couple 100,000 years. This one has been making facial expressions from 10 to 100 million years. It's a pretty big difference. So when this one does it, it's accurate. When this one does it, it's still brand new, practicing. You'll see more muscle tension on one side of the face than the other. So you'll see asymmetry. Indicator number one of a false facial expression is asymmetry. Indicator number two is a stop versus fade, and I'll unpack that. A stop means that I'm faking a behavior and then the expression drops off the face. It's done. The faking is over. A true facial expression, just like the brain chemicals that cause it, because think of the last time you smiled when you were happy. You didn't have to think about smiling. The chemicals made it happen. So as the chemicals reach something called a half-life, the facial expression, just like the chemicals, fades off of the face 3 to 5 seconds after they start showing the expression. It fades off instead of dropping. So those are the two ways. And obviously every scenario is going to be different. But if you see asymmetry, it's most likely a false facial expression, unless you have the one exception, which is a genuine facial expression that's non-symmetrical, which is contempt. And the contempt is kind of that one-sided smile where somebody's looking down on someone else or what have you. And they go, and you see that one-sided smile. That's contempt. Nostril flaring is one of my favorites. In the behavior nerd community, nostril flaring is also called wing dilation. But nostril flaring is there because we have an increase in adrenaline. And that's what I want you to associate nostril flaring with adrenaline. So it could be positive adrenaline, like we're going up and the body produces an instantaneous demand for more oxygen. As soon as adrenaline starts going up, another part of your oxygen system in your brain yells down and says, hey, we need some more air. But since we're social creatures, we're not going to open our mouths and just blurt out that we need air or take in a giant breath in the middle of a conversation. So if we're hiding it or concealing it, you'll see the nostrils flare. And this is an attempt to oxygenate the blood going to the brain. Next, we have gaze aversion. Gaze aversion is looking away. Somebody looks away from you during a conversation. Gaze aversion horizontal is bad. Gaze aversion down or upward is good. I think I said that backwards from the slide. Up and down is good, horizontal is bad. Horizontal gaze aversion just means someone's looking towards their ears. And typically the eyes and head will move together if somebody's experiencing some kind of disagreement or desire to leave the conversation. For police, this is one of the top 3, what we call pre-flight indicators that a person's going to run. You got a criminal who's about to take off. But when we process thoughts, we'll typically see that. So over all the videos that we've watched, all the police body cam footage that we've reviewed, this horizontal gaze aversion is not a good thing. So I want you to look for that. We don't need to look for the up and down unless it's something you really want to do. But I would just be on the lookout. When you see horizontal gaze aversion, just go into your mind and say, that I just saw this movement. It's not a still image. I know all these body language instructors describe behaviors as still images, but that's ridiculous. We're looking for movement of the body. So I see that the person's moving to the side. The moment I see the movement, I need to understand what caused it. And we could just be in a normal, casual conversation, and I mention airbags. No idea. And the person experiences horizontal gaze aversion, and I can see it. And later on in the conversation, I find out they were in a horrible car accident. That's what caused it. But if I see it and it's not about something of my product, or they're not objecting to something in my product or what I'm talking them into, basically, I'll ignore it. And if I say, oh, they showed gaze aversion when I talked about a bar fight, no big deal. I'm just not ever going to mention that subject ever again. So that's good to know, because that's typically how we ruin conversations without really knowing that it's happening. And next we have something called hushing behaviors. Hushing behaviors indicate uncertainty and stress, depending on the context. Both of them are negative. So if we see a client We're asking a client, so is this something that you think you could do? And they cover their mouth while they're saying yes or while they're agreeing with us, and it's not true. It's not like they're trying to be deceptive or lying to us or trying to get one over on us. They may just be socially uncertain about telling you certain things, but we need to know. We need to see the truth. So if we're talking any behavior that covers the mouth from your view by the other person, is called hushing behavior. So you're asking somebody, hey, does everything look good to you so far? And they're like, yeah, I think that's something that could work. That's hushing behavior. And we'll talk about that in the deception part of the course as well. But think about when you see a kid accidentally drop the F-bomb in front of their parents the first time. We see hushing behaviors. It's programmed inside of us, and we don't grow out of it. But as we get to be adults, we might get a little more creative with fulfilling the impulse. But it's still there. And finally, here on the bottom right, you see this little red circle. This muscle here in the base of the chin on the front of the face that pulls the chin upward. So if you want to move your chin muscle upward, the actual scientific name for that muscle, no BS, is called the chin boss. That's the name of the muscle. So the chin boss is also called a grief muscle. And this was, I think, initially coined by a guy named Paul Ekman. But the grief muscle is called that because when you see the chin go up, this is grief or shame. Grief or shame. And depending on the context, it's important to note that. If I'm a lawyer talking to a jury and I want them to experience the grief that my client went through, whoever raises their chin muscle as I'm talking, those are the jurors I'm going to start to address more and more and more, so they're more persuasive to the rest of the jury when they go on break. And this is the same thing I teach attorneys.